The Russo-Japanese War was fought between Japan and Russia in the early 20th century. At the time, Japan was still a small, underdeveloped Asian country, less than 40 years after the Meiji Revolution. How hard would it have been for Japan, which had just begun its modernization, to fight against Russia? In this article, I will introduce the careers of the generals who participated in the Russo-Japanese War. The first was Heihachiro Togo, Commander-in-Chief of the Combined Fleet of the Navy. He single-handedly crushed the Baltic Fleet in the Battle of the Sea of Japan, producing one of the most stunning victories in naval history. The result of this naval battle was a very significant victory that moved Russia toward peace. He was a soldier from Satsuma and participated in the Satsuma-British War between Satsuma and England at the end of the Edo period. In the Boshin War, he fought as a naval soldier and participated in the Battle of Awaoki and the Battle of Miyako Bay. He also took part in the Sino-Japanese War, serving as captain of the battleship Naniwa and taking part in numerous naval battles. After the war, he became the commander-in-chief of the Maizuru township, but just before the start of the Russo-Japanese War, he was recalled by the Minister of the Navy, Junpei Yamamoto, and appointed as the commander-in-chief of the Combined Fleet. When Emperor Meiji asked him why, Yamamoto is said to have replied, "Because Togo is a lucky man." Next was Iwao Oyama, the general-in-chief of the army, the commander-in-chief of the Manchurian army. As general of the army, he led the Japanese army, which had few troops, to victory in a number of major battles against the Russians. He was also a samurai from Satsuma, who was shocked by the overwhelming military power of the British during the Satsuma-British War and went to study artillery. He was active as an artilleryman in the Boshin War. He also improved cannons and developed a cannon called the Yasuke gun, named after him. He fought with his relative Takamori Saigo in the Seinan War. He was so concerned about this all his life that he never returned to his hometown of Kagoshima. In his youth, he was a man of great talent, but in his mature years, he became a generous person who did not handle things on his own, but left the work to his subordinates and took responsibility for them. This seems to be based on his beloved Takamori Saigo as his leader image. Many of the soldiers from Satsuma were capable of becoming generals because of their ability to lead others. Next, I will explain about the Manchurian Army's Chief of General Staff, Juntaro Kodama. He was a samurai from the Choshu clan who had not yet participated in the Boshin War, but did participate in the subsequent Hakodate War. He participated in the siege of Kumamoto Castle during Satsuma Rebellion. He assisted his commander well and defended Kumamoto Castle from the attack of the Satsuma army. After the war, Kodama, who was the principal of the Army War College, often went to hear lectures by claimants Wilhelm Jacob Meckel, who had come from Germany to teach general staff. Meckel highly appreciated Kodama's talent. Incidentally, Meckel was one of the few people who were convinced of Japan's victory at the outbreak of the Russo-Japanese War. Meckel said, "As long as General Kodama is in Japan, there is nothing to worry about. Kodama will surely defeat the Russians and win the war." Iwao Oyama, who had been informally appointed as commander-in-chief of the Manchurian army, nominated Kodama as chief of the general staff. Kodama was too high-ranking to accept the position of chief of staff at that time, but he accepted the demotion because there was no one better than Kodama. As a general staff member, Kodama was in charge of the actual command, and was able to defeat the Russian army with a small force. Here, we will introduce the commanders of the four corps that actually commanded the army. The Japanese army was organized into four major corps. It was Tendo Mopiroki who commanded the First Army. He was a Satsuma soldier and a man of great strength, typical of Satsuma warriors. He was a general who acted with sensitivity, valuing experience over logic. The victory of the Japanese army immediately after the Russo-Japanese War was largely due to the work of Kuroki. The commander of the Second Army is Yasutaka Oku. He was from the Kokura clan, which fought against the Choshu clan in the conquest of Choshu at the end of the Edo period. The military commanders and chiefs of staff were dominated by soldiers from Satsuma and Choshu, but Oku was the only one who could not be left out because of his outstanding command ability and personality. In fact, Oka was the only one who could plan operations and move the army without a chief of operations. It is said that he was a very humble man and never talked about his war achievements. The commander of the Third Army is Maresuke Nogi. He was a samurai from the Choshu clan. The Satsuma clan had many people who were suited to be generals, but the samurai from the Choshu clan were nervous, and many of them were more suited to be chief strategists than generals. Aritomo Yamagata, who was from the Choshu clan and was in charge of the army, wanted to include a military commander from the Choshu clan because a military commander from Satsuma alone would not be balanced. So Nogi was chosen. The Third Army, led by Nogi, was in charge of capturing the Lushun fortress. Nogi made a great sacrifice to bring down the impregnable fortress of Lushun. Nogi was hailed by the people as a great general for the fall of the fortress of Lushun. Nogi was ashamed of himself for sending so many soldiers to their deaths, and asked Emperor Meiji to take responsibility for his actions and commit suicide. However, it was rebuked by the emperor. There is also an episode where Nogi was invited to a lecture, and when he said of himself, "Gentlemen, I am Nogi, who killed many of your brothers," he burst into tears and could say nothing more. When the Emperor Meiji died, Nogi and his wife were martyred. Many argue that the main reason for this was remorse for the deaths of so many soldiers in the Russo-Japanese War. Lastly, the commander of the Fourth Army was Mishitsura Nozu. He was a man of outstanding merit in all battles from the Boshin War to the Sino-Japanese War. He had the reputation within the army of being the strongest general among the four commanders. It is said that he and Kuroki of the First Army became rivals who were aware of each other, and out of concern for this, Iwao Oyama, who was older than them, took over as commander-in-chief of the Manchurian army. Until the Sino-Japanese War, Nozu was very good at surprise attacks, but surprise attacks also caused a lot of damage to his allies. In the Russo-Japanese War, he learned from this lesson and consistently used a strategy of taking advantage of his opponent's weaknesses rather than forcing an offensive. As a result, Nozu's Fourth Army preserved the most troops until the final Battle of Mukden, and became the main force of the battle instead of Kuroki's First Army, whose strength was rapidly declining. In this way, the core members of the Russo-Japanese War were skilled soldiers who had lived through the wars that began with the Boshin War. As a result, they have a very good sense of balance. And this is what Iwao Oyama said when he left for war. "This war has only a 50% chance of victory, and we will do everything in our power to bring it to 60%. The rest is the work of diplomacy. I ask you to take care of the rest of the war." This political sense must have been completely different from that of the soldiers of the Showa era. In the next section, I will explain the specific battles of the Russo-Japanese War. If you find it interesting, please subscribe to the channel and click the like button.